China has sharply criticized the United States after Senator Marco Rubio extended public birthday wishes to the Dalai Lama, who turned 90 last week. In a strong statement, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said that Tibet, or Xinjiang, as referred to by Beijing, is an integral part of China, and affairs related to it are strictly domestic. Mao reiterated China's long-standing position that the 14th Dalai Lama is a political exile, accusing him of carrying out separatist activities under the cover of religion. She warned the United States against meddling in what China calls its internal affairs, stating that Washington is in no position to point fingers on human rights or religious freedom in Tibet. The statement also urged the U.S. to be fully cognizant of the sensitivity and complexity of Tibet-related issues and to stop sending, in her words, wrong signals to Tibet independence forces. This is not the first time Beijing has taken issue with global leaders recognizing the Dalai Lama. Earlier, China also objected to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's greetings to the Tibetan spiritual leader, as well as celebrations attended by senior Indian ministers in Dharamshala. The back and forth reflects wider tensions between China and the West over issues of sovereignty, human rights, and religious freedom, with the Dalai Lama remaining a flashpoint for Beijing. Now we're joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute from Tokyo, Japan. Thank you for joining us today. Why does Beijing view greetings to the Dalai Lama by foreign leaders as an interference in its domestic affairs, and how might this affect diplomatic engagements?
China worry about the influence of the Dalai Lama, but at the same time, it is uncertain if the current Dalai Lama has gone and a new Dalai Lama sworn in. In this case, current situation of the Tibet rely on the influence of the current Dalai Lama. So that's why the new Dalai Lama shows enough influence is a little bit uncertain situation. So in this case, it relies on, of course, the Tibetan exile government. That's why the current Dalai Lama's aide, he prepared to this exile government as a relatively skillful government. But at the same time, anyway, China want to reduce the influence of the current Dalai Lama. And if the next Dalai Lama is sworn in, of course, China has a plan to set up China's Dalai Lama. But from the people's wish, Tibetan belief, they will not support China's Dalai Lama. Of course, incarnated new Dalai Lama, the people will support. In this case, of course, China's influence is limited. But anyway, China will try to separate Tibetan people under the China's control area and the Tibetan people outside of China control area. So they try to separate these two groups. That is their policy. So that's why anyway, how to erase the current Dalai Lama's influence is purpose of China's policy. And in case of the next Dalai Lama, of course, it could be the chance for Chinese government to expand their influence, they believe. That is a concerning point, I believe. Thank you.
And Doctor, what implication do such diplomatic tensions have on U.S.-China relations, especially regarding human rights as well as religious freedom?
Of course, this is a very important issue. If the Tibetan people has the will to resist China's occupation, U.S. has a reason to support this, because U.S.-China competition, when we check the U.S. side, last 249 years of the U.S. history, U.S. hasn't allowed any rival to survive. So now China is a rival of the United States. If the same pattern, the U.S. policy is not allow China to survive. Of course, the Chinese regime need to change. So that's why in case of the U.S. policy, if the Tibetan people has the will to resist China's occupation, of course, the U.S. has a reason to support them. And that could happen, I believe. But it relies on the situation in the Tibet, and it relies on the situation of the Tibetans' leadership. So that's why the Dalai Lama's leadership is a very important part of the U.S. policy in the future. If the Tibetan people and Dalai Lama shows enough influence, enough leadership in the Tibetan people, I think.
Thank you, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for sharing that insight. You will stay with us as we stay in the region. China is issuing